vary, with some witnesses saying that ICE rebuffed pleas to not take the child. But the administration appears to be on the same page. ICE responding to its critics, writing on X, ICE did not and has never used a child as bait. And then they claimed that the child was abandoned. Homeland Security insisting that ICE did not target a child. The vice president also weighed in on this.
I'm a father of a 5-year-old, actually, a 5-year-old little boy, and I think to myself, oh my God, this is terrible. How did we arrest a 5-year-old? Well, I do a little bit more follow-up research. And what I find is that the 5-year-old was not arrested, that his dad was an illegal alien, and then when they went to arrest his illegal alien father, the father ran. So the story is that ICE detained a 5-year-old. Well, what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to let a 5-year-old child freeze to death?
DHS is also accusing the child's mother, who was actually inside of the house. They're accusing her of refusing to take the child and that the father wanted the child to remain with him. Now, they added that in these cases, ICE would place the children with a safe person that the parent designates. But school officials who were there say that is not what happened.
As I got out of my car and came around the corner, I heard, "What are you doing? Don't take the child." His mom, there are people here that can take him. There was another adult who lived in the home that was there saying, "I will take the child. I will take the child." Somebody else was yelling. They saw that I was there and said, "School is here. They can take the child. You don't have to take them." And there was ample opportunity to be able to safely hand that child off to adults.
Are you accusing ICE of using children as bait?
Yes, I mean it's very clear from the pictures, from the videos, from firsthand accounts. I was there. This is what happened.
Now, this is not just an isolated incident. According to the school district, they say that 4 students have been taken by ICE in recent weeks, including this 4-year-old, this 5-year-old, a 17-year-old as well. Another 17-year-old was taken with their mother, and a 10-year-old was taken 2 weeks ago while walking with their mother. And Van, this story has become a big deal because that image is very hard to get out of your mind.
Yeah, I mean, it should be. I mean, I don't know, how can I not be a nihilist about all of this? ICE is a hammer. It doesn't really matter how cute the nail is, right? Like, to me, I don't think that if you're paying attention to how things are being conducted and how things are going, that should surprise you at all. Like, forget about the worst things that we can talk about, which is, of course, the killing of Renee Good. Just think about the way ICE conducts itself in communities. Think about the lack of humanity it treats people with. Think about the superiority in which it treats the people that are inside of these communities as if they are something to be cast aside so they can go do whatever they're supposed to do. Greater than that even is if anyone thinks that the endangerment of a child is going to stop what's happening from ICE, I don't know why they would think that. When I look and I see a whole political part of this country that is anti-child to me. In my opinion, it's like these are people who don't want to feed the children in schools. Children get slaughtered in schools. We can't have a conversation about it. There's just, to me, everything is more important to me than the safety of children, across the board. I've seen this in many different things. I'm not surprised with this happening at all.
There's also that dispute, Judge, about the characterization of this man and perhaps the child as illegal. We've seen this a lot with the Trump administration, where they are saying that people who came through a process in the previous administration are subject to deportation, perhaps because in their eyes that process was not legitimate. But it seems to threaten. I mean, are there rights for these immigrants?
Well, of course there are rights for these immigrants.
Came over on CBP-1 apps and they've been told do X, Y, and Z, and now they're being told they can be deported for that.
Here's the point. Of course they have rights, so they may be deportable, but there's no reason to arrest them, put them in a car, fly them to Texas, keep them in custody. You can do it with process. You can say we're going to have a hearing, we're going to have process. If after the evidence is proved you're not here legally or you shouldn't be here at all, then we can deport you. So there's a way to do it without all this violence and arrests and putting little children in cars. This was all unnecessary. The point here, I want to pick up on what you were saying, is ICE is operating with no real legal controls, no rules. They sort of do whatever they think needs to be done. They're sort of making up the rules for themselves as they go along, and that's a dangerous thing. And that's been the problem with ICE's behavior in these cities throughout these weeks and months. And the judges have pointed that out.
Yeah, several of them have.
Yes.
So there is a process in place, and this is a terrible situation where a young